Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of There Goes Tokyo Remix Edition, where we are taking a look at kaiju movies, giant monster stuff, beyond Godzilla. Last time we talked about Rodan, because I'd never seen it before.
Nor have I.
So now we're going to be talking about Mothra. We're kind of going by some of the big name stuff beyond the big G, big Godzilla that we did not talk about yet. And somehow we never really did talk about Mothra, though she was included in a lot of the Godzilla movies, as well as obviously Godzilla vs. Mothra.
Of course.
So, I'll tell you what. I know that I did see this movie a long time ago, probably when I was very, very young.
Okay, really?
Very young. I might have been like 4 or 5, and I could swear that it was black and white. I didn't think it was color. Maybe I'm wrong, but
okay.
Super, super young when I saw this. And do you want to guess how much of it I remember?
Maybe a tenth?
I think 5%.
Oh my gosh, okay.
All I could recall about this movie, other than the fact that obviously Mothra was in it.
Right.
I remembered the egg quite vividly. And
Yep.
I remembered the twins were kidnapped by some guy.
Okay.
And there were people trying to rescue them. And
Yes.
that's all I remembered, which is basically the plot of the movie.
Weirdly enough, yes.
So, but that's literally all. All the scenes. I didn't remember a thing. So, I don't know. Was this your first time watching, Justin?
This was completely green, yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting because I was kind of excited and maybe even a little trepidatious about this episode because I know you have mixed feelings about Mothra.
Mixed would be appropriate, yes.
Which I don't know if I quite get. I never know if you're just being a little facetious or you genuinely have issues with the character because I love Mothra and I think most people do. But you kind of joke that. Actually, no. Maybe you can elaborate for it here since it's her episode, basically. Well, what is?
Is it though? We'll come back to that.
Well, kind of. Maybe we'll get into the movie a bit. But tell me a bit about, I guess, your feelings on Mothra before this and then your experience, I guess, with it since you haven't seen the movie. I assume you may have before.
Yeah, no, you would think. I was definitely no stranger to the Sci-Fi Channel marathons growing up as a kid. Weirdly enough, though, it was one of those, I came in bits and pieces, and I knew I had seen some of them in full, but I wasn't ever sure, was it this one, was it that one?
They kind of do blend together a little. Sometimes.
Yeah. Which was really fun when we were doing There Goes Tokyo. Mm-hmm. But this one was nada. I don't even know why. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, fun to get back into that, get that experience. And the same can be said for Rodan in that regard as well. Though, cruddy quality is cruddy quality.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to point out when we go a little further into this.
Yeah. The version I watched, I won't say it's HD by any stretch of the imagination, but I will say it was a substantial improvement over.
Did you watch it on Amazon?
I did not. I had it on DVD.
Oh, so, you did? Okay.
I had the Sony release of Mothra, which is still not the most tender loving care, but it's slightly better.
Then I got to talk to you about it because I took your recommendation. I watched it on Amazon.
Okay.
And guess what? It was Blu-ray quality.
Oh my gosh.
And I have something to talk about with that, but continue. Yeah.
Okay. I am very curious.
That's what I thought you did. It's on Amazon. I'm like, okay. Then I thought that's what you were doing.
Yeah, most of them were. I didn't know if Mothra was you had to pay for or if there was something else going on. But
I'll admit I assumed it was free. And I'll admit I tried to find other methods quickly. And I did find a version I could watch online that was, I think, about the same level of quality. But guess what?
Oh.
No dub.
Oh.
No subtitles.
Ouch.
So I watched a few minutes of it with no language just to see how it held up.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of intriguing. But then I said, no, I'm going to pay for it on Amazon. I'll support Mothra.
Okay. I would not fault that purchase and absolutely would contribute to that as well. However, so how do I put this? Mothra is a character in the Toho verse that I feel like I get, but I also realize as I go further and further on, Mothra just sort of exists. She doesn't really do much.
I guess she doesn't need to.
I mean,
maybe she does.
Okay,
she kind of does a lot.
Here's the problem.
She's the Goku.
She's not, though. She's supposed to be Goku. She ends up a side character that's supposed to be the protagonist but goes out of her way to avoid being the protagonist.
You think she's almost like Goku, but instead of like sufficient time, they'll just literally show up at the end, fight the bad guy, win, and then leave, kind of thing.
Yeah, Saitama might be more accurate.
Okay, Saitama would be a better one. Yeah, that's a better comparison.
Like, I'm there, I do cool things, and then you will never see me again. The only difference is, unlike Saitama, Mothra dies a lot. Surprisingly enough, does survive this movie, but that's a whole different rant. Not a spoiler. But
no, Mothra will return many more times, which
yes.
I'd argue she reincarnates, so she's fine.
Yeah,
she's basically like
Mothra will always be back.
She's a force of nature. That's kind of why I'm not concerned about. I know you like to make fun of her. She sort of dies all the time, but
she does.
She does, but not permanently.
Yeah,
she's fine.
Like, okay, so Mothra is kind of the voice of reason amongst the kaiju ensemble.
Yes. Hey,
and
she
yet,
unites everybody.
She doesn't really do much after like 4 movies, and then just sort of becomes a side character from there on in, and in later instances kind of actually provokes fights. But that's a whole different story.
I guess that's true.
The other thing is Infant Island never really gets developed. It just is there because it's there.
It's like Kong Island.
Yeah, like you keep waiting for it to do something and it doesn't. And that's sort of what I liked about Mothra was
we learned something about it.
Yeah, like there's actual like development. We end up on really deep inside Infant Island and we get to see things going on and we actually have a little bit more context as to what Infant Island is actually like as an inhabitant.
You know, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because this actually gained some more insight for me because I didn't remember this movie much at all. So it was actually kind of cool that we did get to see a lot of her island and kind of the mythology and how her people relate to her. It was cool. It was genuinely cool.
Absolutely.
And you remember how there's that plot point where they're looking up the tablet scrolls and they have to eventually, well, we're kind of all over the place here, but they make that sign at the airport to have her land. I didn't realize this, but that comes up in other movies. They use that later.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So they establish a lot here that I guess they assume you've seen, and they do carry it on in other movies.
There's callbacks. I mean, the connectivity after Shawa, which is even then kind of a little loose, somehow manages to get even looser. It's more anthology rather than interconnected.
Well, that's one question I wanted to ask you because, all right, well, there's a couple different eras, and the main one, the Shawa era, is pretty much all unified in the same universe. Then you've got the one after that? I always forget.
Heisei.
Heisei's mostly, and then everything after Millennium is like reboot after reboot. They're all independent movies, pretty much, most of them.
More or less, yeah.
It's like, but
Shin's going to be interesting, but we got a long way to go.
Yeah, I hope, is that actually going to be a thing?
Shin is 100% going to be a thing. We will see Shin Ultraman, I think, next year.
Ooh, well, we'll talk about some of that stuff in future episodes, I'm sure. But okay,
Definitely.
One thing that confused me in this movie, which I guess didn't really bother me because of what it essentially is, but did you notice that in this movie they kind of found out, oh yeah, there's this giant Mothra bug that's going to come. Nobody questions it. Nobody doubts it. They just automatically accept it. Which, in almost all these movies, especially the early ones, if they're mimicking Godzilla, oh, what are you talking about? This is preposterous. There was none of that in this movie, really, which makes me wonder, at this point, has it been established that they're in the same universe? Because I don't think that was made clear until they started crossing over.
Yeah, I don't think that was a thing until the Godzilla movies decided to do something with it. I think up to that point, it was just, okay, we want to take a break from Godzilla. We don't want this to necessarily be what it's going to be. So let's try and come up with another couple of things. And then I think because there was so much American influence starting up that we got the idea of, okay, we got two big ones, so let's make a big battle movie.
It's a great poster and even more sales. And let's face it, that's pretty much the main allure of these movies is having them meet up and fight and team
exactly.
up. That's fun.
Part of the reason Godzilla has lasted as long as it has.
Yeah, because of the ensemble. It's true.
Yeah,
but
want to see the whole gallery get around.
Which is why Destroy All Monsters is awesome, etc.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about some of the movies again.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
Callbacks are happening.
It'll happen, of course. But so you think this one at the moment is supposed to be an independent thing?
I think it was supposed to be a one-off. I don't think it was designed necessarily to be part of the Godzilla verse as it stood. I don't think Rodan was designed to do that either.
No. I thought I got the impression much more that Rodan was an independent movie that was just kind of mimicking Godzilla.
Yeah.
Which is kind of one thing I appreciated in this movie. I guess before we get further in, I'll just do the brief synopsis. But the thing I liked about this movie in comparison to Rodan was that Rodan was clearly, and I feel so bad, we're just going to keep kind of tearing into Rodan here. I'm sorry, buddy, but we kind of agreed he's a lesser Godzilla movie.
He
really,
is, yes.
Honda's kind of trying to go through the same beats, but it's just not quite as cool.
No.
In a lot of ways, I think they cared more about Mothra, and we could, discuss how good we think the story is, but at least it wasn't a complete rehash of the ideas and beats of Godzilla.
No, I feel like this movie probably would have been more like Rodan if Rodan hadn't happened.
Yes.
I think they got that message of, okay, we can't just do another Godzilla clone. We need to actually put some thought into this and try and interject a little bit more of that social commentary that we saw in Gojira and Godzilla Raids Again, and actually try and do something to that. You can definitely tell between Rodan and Mothra there's a little bit more story heft.
There's story and more care, honestly, and we'll get more into it. But I have to say, just in general, particularly the production and even the cinematography and editing, I was like, well, this is definitely a good...
Somebody spent some time on this.
They put some effort into this one, and I really appreciated that. But basically, 12 minutes in here, Mothra is pretty basic, but there's an expedition to this mysterious island, and, well, I think Nelson's the bad guy, who is
Nelson
essentially
is the bad guy.
A stand-in. Well, I guess there's Shinji was the reporter, right? Or Shinji the kid. I only remember Shinji because of the Evangelion connection. I don't remember any of the characters' names. Full disclosure, because they're all played by the same guys anyway. But Nelson's an American stand-in with some evil nation. It's the U.S.
Yeah,
it's the U.S.
It's like if America and Russia became one big thing.
I think it's Rascalia or something.
Rascallion or something.
Some stupid name.
Yeah.
Okay, America stand-in.
Yes.
Clearly, again.
Yes, very much so.
But anyway, basically, they're meeting with these Japanese individuals to do this expedition. They go to the island, which is Infinite Island, right?
Yep.
And lo and behold, they discover the twins, the fairy twins, the little ones.
Yep.
And evil guy being evil because money takes them, and the reporter and his camerawoman and the primary linguist, who I guess is sort of supposed to be the leader of the expedition, they are saying, no, this is a bad idea. Why should you do this? But he's evil, so he doesn't listen to them.
Of course not.
Of course not, because the movie has to happen. Takes them and shows them off, kind of a King Kong influence. And, by the way...
Come back to that later.
I'll come back to it later, but I'm going to interrupt this very brief synopsis with telling you the moment of the movie that I thought was the best.
Oh, please go on.
All right. I'm serious because
go on.
Because it's just like, all right. Well, he's showing them off in the little carriage thing, which he suspends it with the stadium.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the wonder of science, the little fairies, and they just casually walk out as if it's part of the act and start singing Mothra. Like, all you guys are singing, oh yeah, we're gonna kill all of you. Just like, oh yeah, they have no idea. I'm like, oh man, they went right into it calmly, like, yeah, we're getting out of here. I'm sorry. But yeah, so they go right into that act, and basically the other characters try to find ways to save the twins, but in the meantime, their magical song is, of course, summoning Mothra, who raises up. And meanwhile, it's not just them singing. No. The natives have to do a chant and some sort of mating ritual to summon her, and this giant mountain opens up, and then, of course, the egg bursts, and in larval form, Mothra comes out, goes on the way, and attempts to rescue the fairies. And can it be done? Can they find a way, or else everything will be destroyed? And, well, some things will be destroyed, but I think you can imagine that it works out okay. Probably. But I won't spoil the whole thing. But that's basically the plot synopsis. Yeah. And, yeah, man, I stand by what I said. Just after Rodan, I was so impressed by this one in so many ways. I loved it. Things that stood out to me, I'll start with the positives. I think the story was interesting. I agree with you. I think that kind of the setting of Infinite Island, learning a bit more about the mythology and the people was cool. I thought the music was good again. I thought the cinematography and editing were pretty crisp, and there was I don't know, it was just a level of production I was surprised about.
Okay. And
also, I think this might have had to do with the fact that I was watching it in Blu-ray quality.
Okay.
there's a there's a double there's a double-edged sword here to this one, but okay. I think that they were really taking their time to emulate some of the best aspects of what they achieved with Gojira, because when it comes, especially with the twins, with the scaling and the different editing tricks they used there, that was pretty cool. And honestly, I thought Mothra, especially in her larval form, was a really good prop, really good monster.
Yeah, I was going to say the emergence is really well put together.
It's really good. I enjoyed her attack on the tower, and I think this, especially compared to Rodan, just because they use the same effects with I guess the solar winds, or not the solar winds, but the winds of her wings flapping, just the cars spinning up in like a pile, and just the buildings getting crumbled. Like just they loved a lot of those, and I thought they did a good job selling that point just from an effects perspective. I think it was great. I thought it was fun. That actually, those were the best aspects of the movie. I thought the story was fine, but I don't know if I really felt that it was. I once again comparing it to Gojira, I don't think it was quite that same level of story or characters, because I know there are a lot of characters kind of are like that in these movies, but I guess the main reporter guy seemed kind of like a bumbler.
Yeah, it was very. Here they're fulfilling their tropish roles.
Yeah, we're good guys because we're good. We're
bad
likable.
guy is bad because bad.
It was very basic, which was more surprising than I expected, and it's just. I thought it. I mean, I hope maybe you can actually back them up on this, because you seem to think they were emulating some themes. So tell me more. But I kind of was a little disappointed that. I mean, it was fine for the movie. It was fine, but obviously Gojira and even Rodan, we had the themes of nuclear power, man has to watch what we do in relation to the planet and whatnot, and that whole theme. This time it's like, I guess there's that theme, but no, it's just one evil guy that's really evil because he's greedy. And I don't know. I felt like, I guess in Godzilla versus Mothra, it's kind of a similar thing.
Sort of ish. Like, what do we do with this? Can we exploit it for personal gain?
Yeah, with the egg, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess I thought that was a little simple, but I did really like the twins and just that effect, and I liked the clever, the little dolls when they grab them. But I will say, though, I really love the effects in this movie, and I think they did a great job, but watching it in Blu-ray, it really outlines when there's a blue screen. Like they got that blue glow, and when you've got like one guy in the foreground against the models, and like wow, and I have never been able to see. I don't think they do this in too many movies. Did you notice that with the tanks there actually are little figurines, and you can clearly tell they're little toy soldiers, and I'm like, that's adorable. But I've never, and I'm just thinking, these are great, but I don't know if these were ever meant to be seen on like HD level.
No,
because I never would have noticed that before.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But I was like, wow, it's cool, obviously, and I admire that aspect of it. But it's you can clearly. Oh, and also, Mothra looks great, and they did a great job with the wings. I think they learned a lot from Rodan, and we're building off that.
Yeah.
But guess what?
What's that?
I could see the strings a little bit.
Yeah, same. I wasn't crazy about the much furrier version, but that's a whole different story.
Mothra varies in her furriness.
You know what? Actually accurate. But yeah, as far as thematically it goes, it's often been looked at as kind of a look from the Japanese perspective on the overall American influence.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where we get the whole Roskillian thing. Like, oh, there's these opportunities for gain. Here's what we can do to exploit this. Here's all these ways that we can sort of impose ourselves on these lesser nations because we can do it.
Yeah, expansionist and whatnot.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with somebody taking shots at America. I've got problems with when it becomes something that does not end up working, when it just doesn't make any sense. Cough, cough, Shin Godzilla. But
you really don't like that part.
Just doesn't make sense.
You know what?
It's a whole different rant.
We'll do a video on Shin Godzilla because we never did one before. But we'll talk about it then.
Yeah, no, it'll come.
But is that something that it bugs you in? All right, well maybe you can explain it a little. Do you just kind of not like it when they do it in Godzilla movies? Because I always thought it was totally warranted.
It's not even that. It's one of those, if you're going to be satirical, be satirical and help us understand the pieces of being satirical.
Okay.
When you try to throw a bunch of things at the screen and just say it is satire, I don't think that's satire.
Do you think this was more successful? Because I didn't think it was.
I think it was
America.
I think it was simplified, and
Yeah.
I think with satire you can't really afford to be simplified. It's got to be a little complicated, or else it doesn't work.
Because I thought the Rascallions or whatever they were I wasn't even really sure they were considered to be villainous because they, I guess, were backing the main guy, but I still felt it was very focused on here is one evil guy's ambition, his little club of people.
Well, the one plot point I thought was interesting was, the country of Roscalia was not really on board with this, but he paid for everything, so they just gave him control, which is like,
Interesting line.
I kind of see the parallels there. That's not necessarily a bad method. It's more very bad because evil is kind of a trope that always kind of bothered me because I feel like it's mostly lazy writing. Don't get me wrong, bad villain is often a lot of fun, but
It depends on the story.
depends on the story. I mean, Hans Gruber is arguably very bad because evil, but
Within the movie, yeah, absolutely. And for that film, it works.
yeah. I mean, there's always an exception to every rule.
Sure,
But
sure.
I think it's a matter of making a character interesting, making a character engaging, and this just does the whole bad guys bad shtick, which is kind of frustrating when you know that they can find interesting ways to get you behind characters in the moment. It's one of the things I think Honda does a very good job with. So it was kind of weird to watch him sort of play between the lines now. But I also think in a weird way it's interesting because this is the first time in the early Showa years that we actually had a human antagonist. So I think that's another sort of level of perspective.
Okay.
The one thing I was also thinking about as well, and this was something that I was exploring a lot more when we were doing There Was Tokyo, was a question I thought very early on when I was a kid.
Okay.
Was, okay, when did Godzilla become the Godzilla that I grew up with? This actually likable hero, this kind of almost like a superhero to varying degrees.
Yeah.
That we see in Adventure to Adventure, and
My favorite Godzilla.
to varying degrees, mine too. I kind of like iterations of all of them. Millennium's complicated, but that's a whole different story.
Well, all right. Do you prefer him as a hero or as a villain? I guess if you had to pick.
Short version depends on the movie. It's
Cop out.
It's not really a cop-out. I think the problem is you've got Showa, which, as we mentioned, has a very straightforward narrative, and we have a character arc.
Yeah.
Heisei, we start off very villainous. We kind of start doing our own thing, and then we get more of a character arc, and that character arc is really interesting. I love Godzilla vs. Destroya.
Destroya.
Millennium,
They do everything.
they throw a lot at the screen.
Whatever.
Weirdly enough, the thing I find the most fascinating about Millennium is Godzilla is the least interesting part about Millennium.
Godzilla, Mothra, all monsters attack.
That's actually Heisei, I believe.
Is it Heisei?
Yeah.
Is it?
Millennium, I believe, starts with Godzilla versus Mechagoras.
What's the... Wait. Not Godzilla 2000?
That one.
Okay. I was like, what about Orga? I was like, wait. Maybe
I was trying to remember what came first.
Look, I always forget Megaguirus for some reason. I don't know why.
Which I feel bad because
It's a cool one.
It's an interesting movie. It's not perfect, but it's interesting.
Yeah. But all right, I understand completely that he could be good. He could be wonderful in any iteration. I was asking what you personally prefer. That's all I was asking.
No, that's fair.
Because I grew up with the same Godzilla, thinking of him more as a hero. You know, like Ebirah, Terror of the Deep is my go-to. Speaking of Mothra.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love me some Godzilla camp, and I think that's one of the things I found the most interesting about Mothra. I promise I'm going to get back to your question.
That's fine.
But I think this was kind of the first time I started seeing signs of Godzilla.
Camp?
Rephrase. Toho becoming the Toho kaiju verse kind of becoming what we would come to know it as. It had a little bit more of a sense of humor. It had campy moments.
It was more fun.
It was a lot more fun than Rodan, Gojira, Godzilla Raids Again.
Yeah.
And it felt more like a popcorn movie than like this kind of meditative piece.
So would you say this is kind of the beginning of that?
I would say it was kind of laying the groundwork of what was to come. Not necessarily the crux of everything else, but sort of getting the stage set. But as far as that goes, I would probably argue more anti-hero than straight up hero or villain. I like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is probably my favorite entry. Well, I mean, Destroy All Monsters is probably top 3 as well. But
there's a lot of favorites. We've discovered this.
Yeah, like I like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster because
this was what became. Go ahead.
Because it focuses on, okay, I am living in a world that hates me and I kind of hate it back. It's a lot more morally complex. And the human component as well is, do we actually trust these monsters? And should we trust those monsters? It's a really compelling question.
You know, I'll admit, I know we did our list years ago, and I think it shifts for me sometimes what my favorite one is. Honestly, it depends on the mood. But I think that it does. But I really do think that one, if I was to pick like a pinnacle of what I think those movies are, at least the Showa ones, I feel like that's it. Because it's like you've got a little bit of everything there.
Yeah, you've got a battle, you've got character growth, you get to see sort of what the franchise is becoming, and you've got a little bit of popcorn fun, which I think is kind of a necessary component for the Showa era. Like, yes, the social commentary is important, but I think what we come to know about it is the goofier elements, the weird effects.
Well, that's what hooks us in.
Yes, exactly.
But I will say this, and maybe, all right, Mothra is becoming a big discussion, but this is okay, because I've wondered this. Okay. Yeah. Now I want to get your take on this. Okay. In terms of these big monster movies, these kaiju films, Godzilla movies, how important do you think the human plot is? Because I've often heard, even when Godzilla King of Monsters came out, people were like, the human story's boring, nobody cares, the fight scenes were awesome. Cool, sure. But I always found that, I guess is that the general idea? Because for me, I don't want to just feel bored during the human scenes. Like in the Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, as I've told you many times, I really like the human plot a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily you can have one and not the other. I think the best ones, you get a little bit of both. I think it's a matter of how it's utilized. And honestly, I think some of the best entries, Gojira in particular, don't necessarily, I mean, they realize that less is more in terms of kaiju. I think when it becomes nonstop smackdown, it ends up becoming sensory overload.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I had fun watching Godzilla King of the Monsters, but I never really had this like, oh, I need to go back and rewatch this like I did with Godzilla 2014. And especially, even though I know I say I have problems with it, Shin Godzilla.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. In terms, I guess, of the balance, though, well, then I guess did you like the plot of Mothra?
That is a great question. So
I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Okay, so
maybe I'm being too hard on it. I liked it, but okay. I'm just like, is it too simple? I've seen all these other Godzilla movies that got better. I'm sorry, go ahead. And by the way, I was looking something up to kind of answer your question. I agree with you.
Yep.
I would say this is the beginning of the Toho formula.
I was wondering where you're going with that. Yeah.
Because could you guess what film comes after this?
Go on.
Godzilla versus King Kong. We're there. We're there.
Okay.
We're there.
Okay.
So I think you're right.
Might as well. Yep.
I think you're right.
Yep.
They're like, we're doing it. We're monsters fighting. They went strong in the beginning right away.
You might as well.
Okay. But all right, how do you feel about the plot? Do you think it's fine? Do you think it's great?
So that kind of brings up my biggest problem with the movie, which is, weirdly enough, not Mothra.
I didn't think it would be. I was like, Mothra's pretty great in this, actually.
Mothra's pretty great, but Mothra is kind of a side character in her own story, and I don't necessarily find that a deal breaker.
No.
What I find troubling is Honda's direction, which starts out really, really well. I loved the first, 30, 40 minutes of this movie.
Well paced, yeah.
It's well paced. I like the setup. I think what's going on is interesting. The characters are interesting, a little tropey, but
Sure.
I like this. I like the antics on the island. I think the questions it's raising are interesting, and we get a little bit of world building. It's not just Infinite Island is all Mothra all the time.
Yeah, you're right.
I appreciate it.
They built up to.
It's like, you guys do other things, right? Like, don't you like forage for food or?
Nope. It's just they just eat Mothra.
We hide in caves and worship
No,
Mothra.
we just wake up every time somebody grabs the twins and bang rocks together, and then we just disappear right afterwards. That's all we do.
Clearly.
It was the bizarre scene. Oh, we're back. And by the way, what are those rocks made of? It was this really lovely sound. Bing, like what was magical island rocks.
Clearly. Which brings us to part 2 of the story.
Okay.
Which Honda more or less.
It's a monster movie now.
It's not only a monster movie. There's no nice way to say this. It's basically King Kong plagiarism.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
okay.
there are a few differences, but it's almost beat for beat.
Yeah, it's very King Kong-esque, like Infinite Island, Skull Island, very similar.
We brought this creature.
Although, you know what? I guess it could have been worse. They could have just taken the egg instead of taking the twins. That was different. Like, they had an interesting element.
It's King Kong with a happier ending, but
What happens to King Kong?
you and I both know what happens at the end of King Kong. But yeah, and it's still engaging, but you know what's going to happen. The effects are okay, but you kind of lose that interest as to what was going on, what's going on with these characters. I debated turning off the subtitles because I knew where everything was going and basically what they were saying. The subtitles didn't really give me.
I'll tell you what. I kind of agree with what you're saying. I kind of thought it lost a little bit of suspense towards the end because, okay. All right. You know what? This is spoiler territory. We're getting there. It's fine. Okay. How... I thought making the weird symbol in the airport was cool.
Yeah.
That was fine. That's like a launch pad, landing pad for Mothra. Okay.
Yeah.
But, okay, I guess the twins, when they're doing their telepathic singing, they can call Mothra to them, but there's new nuance. Like, we bring her here, she'll destroy everything until she gets with us. Sorry, that we can't communicate with Mothra specifically. Could you try to not? Which they establish later on when they figure out what they're doing with Mothra. No, she can't. She's not just purely destruction, I guess. So I guess they were like, oh no, we got to keep it more tense. So they have that box, this material, I guess, to block telepathic rays. This is great.
Yeah.
But instead of just having the twins like out in some open area, then they just no, we're gonna just have everybody ring these bells, which will sound like they're singing.
We basically Close Encounters Mothra.
This is too much. This is where the giant moth movie lost me.
That's the other thing that is kind of a problem with Mothra is during that second half,
I'm like, what?
Honda kind of shoehorns in things to sort of extend the plot, things to kind of rush the plot.
Like, spoilers, after the bad guy's killed, which he's gunned down because he's an idiot. He is such an idiot.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, you're incredibly dumb. After he's killed him, like, okay, great, give her back. We'll put no, we gotta keep this going. I'm like, why? Just give them to
There's literally nothing holding you back.
So that was actually my one big issue with the movie, was that was obviously just trying to add more drama than needed to be.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, we killed the bad guy, great. And that's but I guess that can't be the climax. Oh, we have to land Mothra without destroy. I guess it was kind of clever. It wasn't just a battle, but I don't know. It was pretty obvious that bells, I don't think, equal telepathic voices, but I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I thought the tempo thing was interesting, but it's also kind of stretching. Obviously, they had a little bit of help from the twins, but it just sort of felt like, okay, what can we do to add more conflict? Well, there's this magical thing to tune out the twins so Mothra doesn't know where they are.
Like I said, on one hand, it's creative, but I also thought it was not the best idea.
Yeah, and alongside that, wouldn't Mothra still just go to the less known location, even if
if you block the signal.
Yeah, like
she's gonna
Mothra's already like mowed down 3 ships by now. I don't think you're gonna get very far.
Which, by the way, I have to say, Mothra, I think, is usually established as being kind of like one of the good guys.
Yeah.
As long as, I guess, you don't mess with nature, she's okay. But this one, she straight murders. I'll never forget.
Oh, yeah.
Has one of the most brutal kills I've ever seen. When she's babying, remember, can you guess what I'm thinking of?
Go on.
When she squirts her, like, what is her webbing up at the helicopter?
Yep.
Burst in flame. I'm like, oh, they are gone. They are gone.
Don't even bother sending a rescue team.
They are
done.
They are toasty. I'm like, by the way, they get, also, I don't know the military was on point in this movie.
They were.
They usually could hit Mothra.
Yeah.
They didn't miss 20,000 times.
Well, it wasn't a Godzilla movie. That's probably why.
Probably why, even though he's a bigger target. So figure that
True.
out. I don't know. And I do like the fact that when she's morphing and creating her cocoon, it's basically a giant peanut.
I was thinking the same thing.
You're right. It was a peanut. But, all right, let me pick your brain. All right. So you actually didn't mind Mothra in this movie.
No, I wouldn't say still best character, but I think the fact that it wasn't all about Mothra wasn't necessarily a bad thing.
No. In terms of Mothra specifically, like the design, did you like the larval stage? I feel like does change a bit, doesn't it? It seems very.
It grows. Sometimes it's a little bit more. Sometimes a little bit thicker. Sometimes a little bit skinnier. Sometimes it's. Sometimes a little more detailed. It depends.
Has Mothra been more adorable in other movies? Have they ever amped the adorableness? I think maybe they have.
Yeah, I'd probably say Ghidorah was probably most adorable.
But, well, because, yes, thrashed.
Yes, we have to watch adorable Caterpie get slaughtered.
Which is weird because, all right, now there's a little theory we've always had, which is this movie kind of threw a wrench in it for me because, like, all right.
Are you going to go there, Joe?
No, I'm going to go there because, okay, Mothra is, of course, this is her movie, and she is one of the most powerful monsters in this universe, just always. But somehow we've always kind of thought in the larval form it's actually more powerful. She should just stay that way. She's destroying everything. Nothing can stop her. Then she gets to the city. They are hitting her constantly.
Yes.
And I can't tell if there's any damage. She just kind of gives up.
Yeah, more or less.
Makes the cocoon, and they just they shoot her a little bit. I'm just kind of curious what made her stop beyond just plot. We have another monster to show. Like I didn't understand. I guess is it just her time to evolve?
Like okay, I need to go Super Saiyan to stop you.
And I'm like, did she really though? Or was that more
She was
dramatic?
actually doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I was like, did she need to evolve? I was like, because it was getting pretty into the runtime. I'm like, does she ever actually transform? But so yeah,
I was gonna say I timed it. I don't think we got full on Mothra until like an hour and 23 minutes into the movie,
which I was fine with.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty cool. There was a lot of buildup, kind of like Gojira. Mm-hmm. There was a decent amount of buildup.
We don't even get larval Mothra until like 40 minutes. Yeah, 45, 47 minutes. Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, that's really cool. I mean,
yeah.
So I guess the movie was interesting enough. I guess maybe I'm being a little unfair in comparing it to a lot of the later movies where they have more fleshed out plots and more interesting characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was good. I liked it a lot more than Rodan. I know that much.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about too while watching this was it kind of had a Ridley Scott's Alien kind of vibe to it in terms of the marketing way back when.
All right.
They deliberately didn't show you what Mothra looked like. There wasn't really a sense of, okay, what was this character going to be? But they tried to build up that this was a very strong creature. This was something that was going to cause a lot of chaos.
The greatest monster in all creation.
Guns can't stop her and blah, blah, blah.
It's great, 50s marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Guns can't stop it.
Yes.
We are helpless.
Yes.
Who can save us? Flash Gordon, next week.
Crossovers you would have thought have happened by now, but we have not gotten there. I would love to watch it, but...
Flash Gordon versus Mothra. Well, they probably team up and fight. Who'd they fight at the end? Who would be, I don't know.
If it's a Mothra crossover, probably the bad guys... Ming the Merciless has found some way to indoctrinate King Ghidorah or something.
Gigan or something.
Oh yeah, probably some creature in the Rogues Gallery.
Make it happen, people. Make it happen.
Take my money. But no, the whole thing was this idea of Mothra. Nobody knew what was going to come out of that egg, and then there it is. So, I mean, I was trying to look at it with, like, how would I have viewed this without knowing what
Anything.
Mothra was going to become?
Actually, that's a good point to make because think about it. Most monster movies of this type wouldn't make this pretty cutesy monster the terrifying thing,
No.
this destructive thing. So it actually is kind of a pretty unique idea.
It's kind of a counterpoint, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Do you think that Mothra's good-natured tone, and even in this movie, just the design could maybe detract from the frightening nature of it?
That's a good question, because if it wasn't for the destruction, I would probably say no. I think viewing this before everything else, I think it would give a little bit of a horror vibe. I think there's something about the presence that the Toho-verse hasn't quite effectively captured since Gojira. Shin Godzilla came really, really close.
But the scale,
the scale, like the way I described it to my brother, that I think somebody explained to me, was 2014 Godzilla was what they got the designers to more or less say, okay, you're 5 years old, you see Godzilla out your window, try and make that happen. Shin Godzilla was described by production designers as, if you had a nightmare about Godzilla, what would you have looked at?
Oh, well, that was a pretty good inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we're gonna have to do an episode because this needs to happen. But you are right, I guess. But viewing it probably like 1961 when this came out.
Yeah.
It's a giant insect that's going to destroy the city, and it's tearing up buildings, which I think was very effective. I thought they did a really good job with their models in this one. Little figures aside, poor Blu-ray. But no, really, I still think I'd be pretty blown away by the effects and by the overall presentation.
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell that they were using their budget and they were finding ways to make it work.
And I can tell that they really built off of Rodan. I guess they wanted to keep that flying model and kind of experiment with it. I think they improved.
Oh, considerably.
Do you think Rodan was a more threatening monster?
I think in terms of mysteriousness, because
Didn't
we
see
don't
him.
really get a good look at Rodan until very, very late in the movie.
The sneak attacks in the air were interesting.
Yeah. Like it's basically Jaws meets not Jaws. Yeah, Jaws meets Top Gun.
Jaws in space. Jaws in the sky.
Yeah.
Jaws flies.
Yes. What is this strange creature going at me in the sky? I can't catch it. It's going supersonic. Yeah.
Done. No, but there's definitely a majesty, mystiqueness, very Kong influenced. But
yes.
But I guess, I know you said it was kind of ripping it off, but let's face it. I mean, a lot of these movies are pretty heavily inspired by Kong, which we'll probably be talking about in the next couple episodes here, I'm planning. Because
it's not too far away.
I think I told you I didn't see the original. Can't remember.
Yeah, we got to remedy that.
Got to see that. So that's a big one I got to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, is there anything else you want to say about Mothra before we wrap up and give kind of our final thoughts and try to give this thing a grade or something? That's what we sort of do. I believe we graded Rodan. We're still carrying on the.
We did.
Film fanatics. What did we give it? I can't remember.
For me, it was a C. I don't know about you.
I think I gave it like a C or a C+. I gave it in the C range. So,
yeah.
Okay, so that helps me.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a little too... I'm a kaiju nerd biased, but...
Well, this is our scale. We know this stuff pretty well, so yes.
Yeah.
If we're being too harsh on it, that's fine. We're trying to grade it within these movies as we see them.
So, I guess my one thought to sort of, before we get to grade, is, okay, so in this version... Mm-hmm. We see Mothra as, I would say, speaks softly but carries a big stick.
I think that's kind of always been Mothra, right?
Sometimes. Like, for the most part, Mothra is usually the most consistently heroic. Flawed at times, certainly. Mm-hmm. But compared to any other person in the kaiju gallery, nobody even comes close.
No. The pinnacle of goodness, if there ever was one, I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Even 2014 Godzilla doesn't come close. So
surprisingly, yeah.
But here we've got Mothra, who is surprisingly vengeful, who is very destructive.
I kind of like that though, actually.
No. I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I'm saying that as I'm curious why we never really saw that again.
Well, all right. Correct me if I'm wrong, because this is all right. Have you seen all the other Mothra movies?
I've not seen the Rebirth trilogy.
Okay. Well, We'll kind of. I'd like to kind of get to those at some point because we need to see those. I'd like to fully explore the Mothra character more, and she's pretty much featured just in Godzilla movies, and is usually just more heroic. I think. All right, I'll give you a theory. I guess.
Okay, go on.
Well, all right. In this movie, I guess speaking with the theme of, I guess, kind of expansionism and maybe old colonialism and messing with nature and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
Mothra could be seen as sort of a vengeful representation of those natives and clearly took something from them of value. This is vengeance. Much of the same way Godzilla was more of a nuclear vengeance.
Yes.
So it's kind of a similar thing, but more graceful because it's more naturally based. In terms of the plot, she kind of goes with the twins. They kind of guide her. And she basically wants to get them back. They were stolen. Their family. She cares about them. But after this point, she kind of builds a repartee because of the twins' relationship with the main characters.
Yeah.
Sees there's goodness outside the island. So maybe that's why it's never quite like, oh, I hate you all now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's actually a pretty good observation. I think with Mothra, it's one of those, I'm not trying to necessarily burn down everything.
No.
I just want what's
mine.
What I want people to respect a place that I've got, which is sort of what we see a little bit in Gojira at the start, which is the locals end up on an island, they kind of tick off the locals, and then comes the big guy himself.
Yeah, and he's just kind of doing his own thing at that point.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Gojira is plenty scary in his own right. But,
oh, yeah. Definitely.
But it's a little bit of a different story, and there's still that sense of not everybody is bad. We see that a little bit near the end of Rodan, where it kind of has a little bit more of a somber tone.
Yeah.
I go back and forth as to whether or not the happy ending in Mothra is a little much. It kind of left a funny feeling in my mouth, if I'm honest.
Well, once again, they're trying to be different than they were established.
Yeah.
Before. So maybe they're not trying to make it the same tired old thing third movie on.
Yeah, sad. Okay, we gotta switch this up a little bit.
We gotta do King Kong versus Godzilla next year. We gotta start.
We have to have some sort of optimistic note.
Or they're not gonna. People aren't gonna keep watching these movies.
Yeah, I mean, even Planet of the Apes, for as dark as that franchise was originally, it still had a happy ending. But
yes, and a lot of camp to balance it out.
That too.
That's true. Well, all right. I know you're not the biggest Mothra fan, so I guess coming away from it, did it change your opinion of the monster at all? Do you have any more appreciation or understanding or feelings one way or the other?
It's hard to say because there's interesting things that this movie sets up and introduces, but you also know we never managed to come back to it in any capacity. So I kind of respect this movie as its own entity, but I wouldn't say I respect it as a chapter in it as a part of the whole. It's kind of like my mixed feelings about the Spider-Man movies, the Tom Holland ones, that is. It's not that I think Tom Holland is a bad actor. It's not that I think he's a bad Spider-Man. It's that most of these movies don't really matter that much.
Well, I guess that's a different discussion, but you mean in terms of like the bigger universe?
More or less, yeah. Like, we're seeing one iteration of him in this one, and then we're seeing another iteration of him in the Russo movies.
It's kind of, it's flexible depending on who's writing the story, kind of like a comic book.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why I'm okay with it. Like, I agree with that, but you kind of run into that issue literally when you have different issues being run by different people that might not always directly communicate if there's a big event. It's a problem that happens in comics. Like, why is he acting a little differently and has a completely different design than he did in the last issue in this thing? Oh. Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, it's not always the most balanced thing, but I see what you're saying. I think it's a pretty good first outing for Mothra, though.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely setting the stage for things to come, and I liked a lot of the things it was starting to introduce. I kind of wish that the Toho verse had went further with it. Maybe we'll see that in the Rebirth movies. I don't know.
I think I prefer Mothra when she has somebody to play off of, though.
I think that's an important factor. I think without other kaiju, it can be a little one note.
Like, I consider, maybe that's not her fault. Maybe that's just, like we said, the beauty of the formula. But, honestly, I think that your first Godzilla vs. Mothra movie is really good. I think that's one of the classics. So
it can't be fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, it can't be fun. So that's one thing I want to keep in mind. But all right, I guess moment of truth. What kind of grade do you think we should give it? Because I'm thinking B range.
Yeah, I'm not too far from you, Joe. Like I said, I I really, really like how this movie starts. If it wasn't for that kind of sloppily handled second half, this probably would have been like a B plus A minus. Instead, it's in the B minus range for me.
Okay, I think I'm going to leave it with a solid B. I enjoyed it. I really liked the production on this one a lot. I think they built a lot on Rodan, and they're having a lot of fun for sure. And I really like what you said about it kind of becoming more what these movies would eventually be.
Yeah, I kind of had this like, oh, they're growing up so fast kind of moment with Toho.
They really did.
Yeah.
Actually, they did. Yeah, well, I guess that is going to be our review / discussion tangent thing on Mothra for There Goes Tokyo Remix. I believe next episode we're going to be discussing Gamera, the Invincible. Is it the first one?
I believe that is the first entry, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna tackle the first Gamera because I have never seen it. I think I literally saw one scene.
Oh my goodness.
So that's gonna be the next one we discuss, and after that we'll see where we go. I think Kong might be after that, but we'll tackle Gamera next time.
Okay, sounds like fun.
All right, man. Well, safe farewell, Justin.
Till the next time, everybody.
Bye-bye.